Hello, and a very warm welcome to the English Story Nook. We are so glad you could join us for another story today. Today we're diving into a story about a woman who feels uninspired by her everyday job and dreams of a more creative life. Get ready to discover how a small, everyday mistake can sometimes lead to the biggest and most exciting changes, and how one person finds the courage to chase a dream she was once too afraid to follow. Before we begin our story, if you enjoy our content and want to help us create more, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the English Story Nook. If you'd like to support us further, you can also buy us a coffee. The link is waiting for you in the description below. Every bit of support means the world to us and helps our community grow. And now to the story. She missed her stop and found her future. Ina Lemos was a ghost in her own life. By day, she haunted the sterile, open-plan office of Valorokar Solutions, a marketing agency where creativity went to die. Her official title was Senior Graphic Designer, but a more accurate description would have been Pixel Pusher Extraordinaire. She spent her hours crafting soulless campaigns for clients who cared more about profit margins than principles. By night, she would retreat to her small apartment, the city lights a constant, glittering reminder of a world she felt increasingly disconnected from. It was in these quiet hours that she truly lived, her laptop a portal to a universe of her own creation. Her portfolio, a secret collection of vibrant, innovative designs for sustainable brands, was a testament to a dream she was too afraid to chase. Her own design studio. Her boss, Ben Flemings, was a master of the corporate dark arts. He spoke in a fluent stream of buzzwords and jargon, his praise a carefully constructed illusion of support. "Great work, Ina," he'd say, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. "You're a real team player." Yet he would consistently assign her the most tedious projects, the ones that chipped away at her creative spirit, one pixel at a time. He was the gatekeeper of her ambition, dangling the elusive promise of a promotion like a carrot on a stick, just out of reach. Her best friend, Jessica Liu, a freelance journalist with a fiery spirit and a no-nonsense attitude, saw right through the charade. "He's just using you, Ina," she'd say over their weekly video calls. "You're too talented to be wasting your life in that place." But Ina was trapped in a cage of her own making, a gilded cage of stability and routine. The fear of the unknown was a powerful sedative, lulling her into a state of perpetual inertia. One rainy Tuesday evening, the city blurred into a watercolor of neon lights and slick streets. Lost in a daydream, a vision of a sun-drenched studio with exposed brick walls and sprawling monstera plants, Ina missed her stop. The screech of the subway brakes jolted her back to reality. She found herself in a part of the city she'd never seen before, a charming tree-lined neighborhood with a quiet, old-world charm. As she walked, a gentle rain misting her face, she was drawn to a small, unassuming storefront. It was a little rundown, the paint peeling in places, but it had character. A for rent sign, faded and weather-beaten, hung in the window. Peering through the dusty glass, Ina's heart skipped a beat. It was perfect. The space was exactly as she had imagined it, a blank canvas waiting to be filled with her dreams. A tiny, flickering flame of hope ignited within her, a stark contrast to the dull, persistent ache of her unfulfilled ambitions. The next morning, the fluorescent lights of the office felt harsher than usual. Ben Flemings, his face aglow with a self-satisfied smirk, called an all-hands meeting. He announced a major new client, a fast-fashion behemoth with a notoriously shady reputation. "This is a huge win for us," he declared, his voice booming with false enthusiasm. "And I'm putting my best person on it. Ina, you'll be leading the creative." The words hit Ina like a physical blow. The hypocrisy of it all was suffocating. She, a passionate advocate for sustainable and ethical design, was now tasked with creating a campaign for a company that represented everything she stood against. The irony was not lost on her. It was a bitter, indigestible pill. That evening, the image of the little storefront haunted her. It was a symbol of everything she wanted, a tangible representation of a life she could be living. On a whim, she found the listing online and called the number. A warm, friendly voice answered. It was Leonora Espinoza, the owner of the building, a retired artisan with a passion for supporting local creatives. Ina, her voice trembling slightly, told her about her dream of opening a sustainable design studio. Leonora was immediately captivated. "I've been waiting for someone like you," she said, her voice filled with genuine excitement. "The space has been empty for years. I wanted to find the right person, someone with a real vision." She offered Ina a rent that was almost too good to be true, but there was a catch. "I need to see a solid business plan," she said. "You have 2 weeks." 2 weeks. The deadline was both a challenge and a lifeline. With Jessica's unwavering support, Ina threw herself into the project. Her apartment, once a sanctuary of quiet desperation, was transformed into a bustling command center. The floor was littered with books on sustainable business practices, the walls covered in mind maps and sketches. She spent her nights and weekends in a frenzy of creative energy, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she crafted a business plan that was both ambitious and meticulously researched. She contacted potential suppliers of recycled paper and eco-friendly inks, her voice filled with a newfound confidence. She reached out to local sustainable businesses, her passion for her project infectious. For the first time in years, she felt alive. The thrill of creation, a potent antidote to the soul-crushing monotony of her day job. The process was a grueling yet exhilarating marathon, a taste of the freedom she so desperately craved. Back at the office, Ben, like a shark sensing blood in the water, seemed to intuit Ina's shifting priorities. He became a master of subtle sabotage, his passive-aggressive tactics a constant drain on her energy. He would schedule last-minute meetings that ran for hours, his voice a monotonous drone as he dissected her designs with a fine-toothed comb. He would pile on extra work, his requests always framed as urgent and mission-critical. He would offer unsolicited feedback on her work, his words carefully chosen to chip away at her confidence. "It's good, Ina," he'd say, his tone laced with a faint hint of condescension. "But is it really groundbreaking?" The constant barrage of negativity began to take its toll. The old familiar fear of failure, a ghost she thought she had banished, began to creep back into her thoughts. The elusive dream of her own studio, once so clear and vibrant, began to feel like a foolish fantasy. The hypocrisy of her situation was a constant weight on her shoulders. The grueling hours and the constant pressure, a toxic cocktail of stress and self-doubt, she was on the verge of giving up, of surrendering to the comfortable misery of her old life. The impetus to change, once so strong, was beginning to fade. One evening, as she stared at the soulless, corporate-approved design for the fast fashion campaign, the screen began to blur. The air in the office, thick with the scent of stale coffee and unfulfilled dreams, suddenly felt thin and suffocating. Her heart began to pound, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. A wave of dizziness washed over her. She was having a panic attack. In that moment of terrifying clarity, the walls of her carefully constructed life seemed to close in on her. The endless revisions, the meaningless work, the constant, gnawing feeling of being a fraud. It was all too much. She realized, with a certainty that was both terrifying and liberating, that she couldn't do this anymore. The fear of staying, of wasting another second of her life in this place, finally eclipsed the fear of the unknown. This was the impetus she needed. This was the final push. The morning of the presentation was a blur of anxiety and adrenaline. The 2-week deadline had arrived, a stark reminder of the choice she had to make. Her meeting with Leonora was at 10 o'clock. Her presentation to the fast fashion client was also at 10 o'clock. Ben, in a final, desperate act of control, had made sure of it. It was a classic power play, a final attempt to keep her in her place. She stood at a crossroads, the path to her future branching in 2 distinct directions. She could take the safe route, the one that led back to the familiar comfort of her cubicle, or she could take a leap of faith, a terrifying, exhilarating jump into the unknown. She walked into the office, her portfolio in one hand, her resignation letter in the other. Her heart was a hummingbird in her chest. She walked straight to Ben's office, her steps steady and determined. She placed the letter on his desk, her voice shaking but firm. "I quit," she said, the words a sweet, sweet release. She then turned and walked out, the stunned silence of her colleagues a silent testament to her audacity. She didn't look back. She was already gone. She arrived at her meeting with Leonora, her business plan clutched in her hand, a wild, triumphant smile on her face. Leonora, a woman with a keen eye for talent and a heart full of generosity, was more than impressed. She was inspired. She not only agreed to rent Ina the space, but also became her mentor, her guide to the world of small business ownership. She introduced Ina to a network of local artisans and sustainable entrepreneurs, a community of like-minded individuals who welcomed her with open arms. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Ina, with the help of Jessica and her newfound friends, transformed the dusty, neglected storefront into a bright, airy studio. Every brushstroke, every piece of furniture was a declaration of her independence, a testament to her resilience. News of Ina's dramatic exit spread through the corporate grapevine like wildfire. Her story, a modern-day fairy tale of creative rebellion, became a source of inspiration for her former colleagues. Jessica, ever the storyteller, wrote an article about Ina's journey, a powerful and moving piece that went viral overnight. The response was overwhelming. Ina's inbox was flooded with messages from potential clients, all of them drawn to her story and her commitment to ethical design. Her first major project was a rebranding for a local, women-owned coffee shop. The project was a resounding success, the new design a perfect reflection of the shop's warm, inviting atmosphere and its commitment to fair trade practices. Ina's studio, once a distant dream, was now a thriving reality. Months later, Ina stood in the middle of her studio, the late afternoon sun streaming through the large front window. The space was filled with the happy hum of creativity, the scent of fresh coffee and possibility. She was no longer a ghost in her own life. She was the architect of her own destiny, the master of her own creative universe. The memory of her old life, once a source of comfort and security, now felt like a distant, half-forgotten dream. She had missed her stop, but in doing so, she had found her way home. She had learned that sometimes the greatest journeys begin with a single, unexpected detour, and that true fulfillment is not a destination, but a direction. And that's the end of our story for today. Ina's journey teaches us that sometimes a big change starts with a small step. Have you ever thought about making a big change in your own life to follow a dream? We would love to read your thoughts in the comments section. And remember to check the description box below for some helpful materials to continue your practice. Thank you for joining us at the English Story Nook. Keep practicing, stay curious, and we look forward to seeing you in our next story. Happy learning!